Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tamika and today I'm going to be doing the books that have betrayed me. This video is one in collaboration with Izzy from Happy for Now and Jess from Jess Owens. Don't you wanna have fun? Fool around someone. I am really excited to be kicking off our summer of collabs. Me and Izzy really wanted to get back into collabs this summer. Now, if y'all don't know who Jess is from the channel Jess Owens. I absolutely love Jess Owens. She does cover book community. If you've not checked out Jess, go check her out. If you've not checked out Izzy, who are you? You all know who Izzy is. She's my book big sister. So without further ado, here are the books that betrayed me in some way. I'm going to start with books that I don't talk about 24/7. So let's start off with On the Rocks by Candy Steiner, which is one that I really had high hopes for and I thought that I was going to really love. But honestly, I didn't. I will say though, I did start out really enjoying this book. So Candy Steiner in general is a very loved author on BookTube and the book world and Romancelandia specifically. The issue that I had with this book was not the writing and it was not the characters, it was not the premise. I actually really enjoyed the majority of what I was reading. I found the relationship really cute and I really liked the idea and just the small town vibe that this book had going for it, which is not something I typically love, but I actually have found that sometimes a small town romance can do it for me if there are certain things in place. But the problem with this one was it follows the cheating trope. Our heroine is actually engaged and the person we are following in this book is not her significant other. This is someone that she has known from her childhood, and unfortunately they are engaging in a emotional relationship regardless of if it's physical or not, and the emotional relationship is causing her to cheat on her significant other and not be faithful to him. I know I've said it a lot, but I just typically don't enjoy cheating in books. It's very hard for me to find a situation or a book where I actually enjoy it. It is either I absolutely loathe it and I end up DNFing the book because of it, or it's a situation where I can kind of understand what's happening and it doesn't really feel like actually cheating. There has been books where I've read cheating and it's been okay, like in The Black Fox by Brianna Hale, but there's other books where, like this one, it just does not work because I don't know about you all, but I have personally been cheated on several times and it's not fun. And finding out about it is not fun, so I don't want to read that in books. I don't want to have that kind of escape. I don't want to go into a book where I am reading for enjoyment and to get away from the outside world, which causes me more anxiety, and to go into a world where I'm reading even more of the thing that causes me anxiety. So I just don't typically enjoy that. This book just betrayed me because I had a lot of high hopes for Candy Steiner and I was really enjoying it until I realized this was 100% going to be a cheating trope story, and I just don't want to read that. So I am open to reading more Candy Steiner in the future, but this one just wasn't it for me. Next up we have a Meet Cute. This one is the Loki or Tom Hiddleston kind of fan fiction. It's not necessarily fan fiction, but essentially we have a character that is on this sort of island and she is working closely with Tom Hiddleston. It's not actually Tom Hiddleston, like his name has changed, but for all intents and purposes, they've taken Tom Hiddleston and changed his name and put it into a book. And this is literally just smut. And I don't have an issue with just smut for the sake of smut whenever I'm in the mood for that kind of thing, but this one in particular just didn't do it for me. It just didn't have good writing or a good story, and it just didn't really make a ton of sense. The relationship wasn't super believable, and honestly I was very bored the majority of the time that I was reading this. And I had a lot of high hopes because I do love Tom Hiddleston, though I am not actively a part of the Marvel fan base, which if you know Izzy and May, they torture me constantly because my favorite Marvel movie is Doctor Strange, and I've literally not read any or watched any of the other Marvel movies. I think I've watched a total of like 4 Marvel movies. I'm not a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I didn't really anticipate I was going to love most of the books in the series, but this one in particular I was all on board for, and it just did not meet my expectations. I couldn't get invested. I didn't care about what was happening, so I just DNF'd it and moved on. I do think I counted it toward my reading challenge last year, but I had read like 60% of it or something before I just had to call it. If y'all actually have a good recommendation for like a Loki in a book, please give me that because I want an actual Loki character. I don't really like a celebrity kind of romance, but I might like it more if it was more based on Loki rather than Tom Hiddleston. The third book on this list is Lords of Wrath, which if you know anything about me, I love dark romance. It's one of my absolute favorite subgenres. This one in particular is a reverse harem, and this is the sequel to Lords of Pain, which I preface this by saying this is the sequel because the first book got a 5-star from me. Literally could not put it down, did not stop reading it, was literally in the car with the person I went to a concert with, and I was absolutely devouring this, and they kept trying to talk to me, and I was like, please just leave me alone, let me read this book. I have not been so invested in a book in so long, just leave me alone, I want to read this. Literally was trying to read it on my way home, left a concert and immediately tried to read the book, which is not something I typically do. When I leave a concert, I am exhausted, I don't want to do anything, but the first book in the series, I continued reading it throughout that night. I woke up the next day and started reading it. I literally was obsessed with this book. And so the second book was a huge disappointment compared to the first one. It devastated me and just betrayed me because the first one was so good, and it just felt like the second one was nothing like the first one. It was like all of the bad parts of the first one and a lot of like drama and unnecessary shenanigans that I just could not stand. Like the parts of the first book that I was really invested in, we were not continuing that section of the story, and that is where I do have a ton of issues with reverse harems and books that end on cliffhangers, is the parts that I care about end up getting like shoved to the back burner to just add a ton of sex in there, and I just don't really care about that. So that was really disappointing for me, and I really wanted to love the series, and I loved the first one, so I'm really frustrated that I didn't like the second one. All right, another book that betrayed me. You all are not going to be shocked by this one. I think I've talked about this one a lot on my channel for books that have betrayed me, books I hate, books I do not want to talk about anymore. It's Credence by Penelope Douglas, which this one in particular is one that I really did not anticipate adding to this list because I really thought I was gonna love it. If you're unfamiliar with Credence, this one follows a girl whose parents pass away and she ends up going to live with her uncle. Her uncle is actually the step brother to her dad, so it's technically her step uncle or something like that, so they're not actually blood related, and it's her relationship with all three of them and her developing a monogamous relationship with one of them. So it starts out as all three of them messing around, and she eventually has a monogamous relationship with one of them. I'm not going to bore you to tears with why I didn't like this and why this betrayed me, but this has all of the makings of a book that I would love. It has the taboo elements, saying that this should have been a book that I really enjoyed, and I hated it. Like, I hated every minute of it. I could not get invested. The characters made no sense. The trauma for the sake of trauma was very frustrating. The continued sexual assault on our main heroine was honestly uncalled for. And the label of this being a dark book was not, I don't really think it was that dark, other than some stuff that was just thrown in there like trauma dumping, and I didn't love that. So if you want full thoughts on that, I do have a full rant review on that one, but I don't like who she ends up with. I don't like how the characters are portrayed. I don't like the way their relationships are handled. I don't like basically anything about the book. So if you want full spoilery thoughts, I will link to that if you want to see it. But yeah, Credence was a big betrayal, and it's really frustrating because I've loved everything else I've read by Penelope Douglas. So the last book I want to talk about is one that I know you all didn't see coming when I originally started talking about this series, but that is Third Comes Vengeance by Lilith Vincent. Now, hear me out. Lilith Vincent is my favorite author. I do have several of her books, several copies, several editions of this series. But the third book really betrayed me because the first two books in the series got 5 stars from me. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. There was really nothing I could have wanted to be changed in the series. It was very solid. Absolutely fantastic. I love the characters. I loved our world building. I loved the extra plot lines with the romantic suspense element. I loved the reverse harem aspect. The only thing I didn't like in the second book was I felt like 2 of the men kind of blended together just a little bit and weren't as dominant as the other 2, and that was my only real critique on that book. And the first one got a 5 star. It was one of my absolute favorite books of last year, and this year I did finish Third Comes Vengeance, which was the third book in the series. I did not read this one as it came out. I read this one just a little bit into January, and I have to say that I was extremely disappointed because this one was such a slog to get through. I was very worried that the second book was going to have second book syndrome and be a hard one to get through, but instead it was the third book that was hard to get through because there was just way too much breeding kink for my liking, and it was just frustrating to read because I felt like we could have cut the entirety of the breeding kink out and we would have had a 4-star book. Honestly, overall, I just feel like this should have been a duet rather than a trilogy, but I still love Lilith. So this series, in case you're unfamiliar, and I just told you all my thoughts without telling you what the book is about. It's a reverse harem about a girl who is the mayor's daughter, and she is being promised off to one of these 4 mafia men on her 17th birthday, and on her 18th birthday, she will actually marry one of them, and she ends up with all of them. Are we shocked? No, no one should be shocked. It's a reverse harem. So I just wish we would have had less sex in the third book and more of the actual plot. Like if we could have had more breeding kink from like the beginning until the end, maybe I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but it just didn't work in the way that it was executed. I just felt like she put way too much in that third book, and like no big deal. I still enjoy the series overall. I still own multiple copies of it for that reason, but the third book is a huge disappointment compared to the rest of the series. All right, those are all of the books that have betrayed me. If you liked this video, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up down below and leave me a puppy dog emoji down in the comments because we are collabing with Jess, and she has the cutest puppy in the whole world. So make sure you check the description so that you can go watch Jess and Izzy's video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye everyone.
Don't you wanna have yeah, these babies said that they don't got a future like